Welcome to Design Domination, where you'll learn to become a better, more business-savvy designer so you can dominate your competition. Hi, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Colleen Grotzer, and in this episode of Design Domination, I'm joined by special guest Dominique Falla to talk about how creatives can spend less time on the tasks they don't like and more time on the things that they do like. Dominique Falla is the host of the Creative Spark podcast, and she is on a mission to help women fire up their creative spark. Dominique believes that the freelance model is broken and offers courses and programs to help creatives make the switch from freelancing to funnel building so they can finally stop trading time for money and build the business of their dreams. She can be found at dominiquefalla.com and on Instagram. Welcome to the podcast, Dominique. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Colleen. It's great to be here.
Thanks. I thought we'd start off with some fun questions. And since you're in Australia, I have to ask, would you rather have a wombat or a koala as a pet?
Well, both are protected species, so I'm pretty sure unless you're a registered wildlife carer, you're not allowed either. But after that disclaimer, it would definitely be a koala because they sleep all day. They are the laziest animal on the planet. They're basically rival a sloth for their laziness. So,
Really?
they just hang out in a tree and usually sleep most of the day. So as a pet, I think they would be pretty low maintenance and you could just, have a little cuddle every now and then, but then just leave them in their tree to sleep.
Wow. Well, I did do some research on wombats and you won't believe this, and I don't know if you know this, but I read that they're the only, I don't know if the only mammal or marsupial or whatever they are. There was some category that it put them in. It said whatever that is, they're the only ones that have cube-shaped poop.
Yeah, it is kind of cube-shaped. You're right. It's a sort of rounded, soft cube. Yeah, I used to live in a house that had a wombat sort of burrow at the end of the driveway, and
Oh.
we got to see the baby grow up. But they run around at night. They're very active at night, and they unfortunately they run around on the roads, which is a silly thing for them to do. So yeah, they're a scary animal to meet in the middle of the night.
Oh, no. And then if you want to trip any place in the world, where would you want to go?
For some reason, Italy has been coming up a lot in my Instagram feed, and just I keep seeing photographs of Positano and those beautiful kind of Italian, buildings all built on the edge of the ocean, and my heart just has this longing to go there. So unfortunately, my husband has a very severe gluten intolerance, which means he wouldn't be able to eat any food in Italy. So
oh, wow.
he's not as keen as I am to go there. But
Oh, no. Well, I can understand that. I have a dairy intolerance, but I would still be able to at least eat pasta for the most part. So,
yes.
All right. So we're going to talk funnels today. And a lot of times designers hear the word funnel and they just think about sales funnels and marketing funnels, and they think that it doesn't apply to them. And they don't think of it necessarily as actually automating processes. So it's really great to be talking to you about this today because you have a totally different take on this. The other thing too is that when we talk about funnels, a lot of times, or even automations, a lot of times we hear about automation for teams or by teams, but not necessarily for freelancers, like what they can use these for. So I thought we'd start off just by talking about what's a funnel and what are some of the other preconceptions that designers have about them.
Yeah, I mean, everything you've said is 100% correct. People tend to think of sales funnels as being sleazy just because, in the hands of some marketers, absolutely they're sleazy and they're quite powerful manipulation tools. And yeah, sometimes I will bail halfway in a funnel because I'm like, oh, this is just getting, too kind of sleazy and high pressure. But the technology that allows that to be possible is also something that can be incredibly useful for anybody. And so, essentially a funnel is a sequence of automated steps. And so, it might be that you see an advert or you see a pin on Pinterest and then you click on it and then you arrive at a blog post. And then in that blog post, there's a call to action, which is to download a free newsletter or something or a free PDF. And then you go to another page where you put in your name and your email address, and then automatically an email arrives, which sends you the PDF. And then over the course of a few days, you'll get more emails. So that's a fairly standard funnel that a lot of people have probably been through. All that's happening there is that you're visiting landing pages which have forms, which trigger actions, which then send emails. And if you're making a purchase, you're then directed to a sales page where there's a shopping cart. So all of these bits of technology exist. And so what you can do is use them to basically streamline or automate pathways that people take. So the majority of people are being, kind of funneled into making a purchase or funneled into giving their email address in exchange for an opt-in. But you could also funnel customers to give you pieces of information rather than just the email ping pong that a lot of freelancers are used to. So, there's programs out there, or not programs, but software that allows you to collect information from a client, for example, on an automated basis, or to set up appointments on an automated basis. So using all of those technologies in a way to repeat tasks that you often do, the client handling stuff, the estimating, the back and forth, the follow-up, all of those sorts of things that take the average creative freelancer away from their actual work of creating. If you systemize those processes and use those same tools, then you can automate and streamline the process. And also the other thing to think about as a freelancer is that if there's some offerings that you do on a regular basis where it's basically the same stuff, like a logo design package or a web, a 5-page website build, those things are fairly standardized. Once you've done about 10 or 20 of those, you can start to turn them into a product where the idea, just for cash flow, if nothing else, is to turn your client into a customer. So rather than receiving the email and going backwards and forwards with them in the discussion about what do you want and all those sorts of things, you can actually turn that into a series of type forms and things that collects that information and then takes them to a sales page, and they can, put in their credit card and pay the $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 or however much it is. And then the first time that you're actually having to deal with the customer is because you've actually received the purchase, and then you've also received the information that's been asked from them, and you can actually start building the website straight away. There's lots of ways that the technologies can be used just to basically speed things up and take a lot of the manual handling processes out of the hands of the freelancer.
Right, because when you're freelancing, you're wearing all the hats. And it's like sometimes you just want to do the work and you don't want to do all the admin stuff. And it's like that can really eat up like most of your day.
Absolutely.
Really can.
Yeah, and the biggest complaints, I used to freelance, and the biggest complaints that I hear from freelancers still is that they're always chasing clients. They're chasing clients for money. They're chasing clients for approvals. They're chasing clients for assets. They're chasing clients for copy.
Right.
All of this kind of hurry up and wait really breaks the kind of the day-to-day workflow of a freelancer. And so if you're reversing the process and actually, putting all of those kind of asset collection processes into the hands of the client, and an automated, follow-up sequence that if there's a deadline and they miss the deadline for the content submission, then it sends an automatic reminder. It leaves the freelancer out of the process, and it just means that all of these things can be automated with triggers. Once the client actually takes an action, then it triggers the next part of the process. And so again, it's not the email coming through to the freelancer where they have to stop what they're doing and go, oh, now I need to get them to do X, Y, and Z. The series of automated triggers and processes, if the client does stuff, then they're prompted to do the next part of the process. It literally takes everything out of the hands of the freelancer except for the actual kind of creative build, which is what we're all here for. That's what we became freelancers in the first place for.
Right, not babysitters, because it's also it's like it's time consuming to have to go back to the client and ask them for these things. But it also sometimes makes designers feel like they're nagging. They don't want to be put in that position. I know I felt like that, many years ago when I was having to deal with that stuff, and it would just drive me crazy. It's like, I don't want to babysit. This is taking too much time, or more time than I expected the whole project to take now, and it's that hurry up and wait stuff. I can't stand it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
that's it. That's the story every freelancer tells.
Right. We've all been there. Yeah. So you have a free guide that's really interesting, and you talk about 5 different types of designers and funnels. So do you want to kind of touch on those 5 a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So these sort of series of case studies has come out of the work that I've been doing with freelancers. And so at the beginning, I sort of had a one size fits all kind of approach, is that, everybody needs an opt-in funnel, everybody needs to have a mailing list, then everybody needs to make a digital product, and then everybody needs to sell that digital product to their mailing list. That was the approach that I went into this whole kind of coaching sequence with. And then as I started to work with freelancers one-on-one, I started to realize that no, some people don't want to make an online course or a digital product. They still want to do what they're doing, which is to service clients and design branding and logos. They think that stuff's fun. But we worked out ways that, we could automate other bits and take that off their plate. But also then there's experts who, they want to find a way to package up their expertise. And so they're not necessarily offering a productized service like a branding package, but what they are doing is one-on-one consulting. But there's still a way that they could actually package that into, a different kind of funnel. And then obviously if you do have an online course, but you want to evergreen it because you don't want to be showing up all the time and coaching people, you just want it to run on autopilot, then you could do something called a webinar funnel. So I actually sort of developed from all of the freelancers that I've been working with these 5 different kinds of funnels. The first one is the kind of frazzled freelancer. And that's literally the situation we've been talking about. It's the idea that, you're doing all of the things all of the time. You can't take a break. As you say, you're being a babysitter for your clients. Yes. You're chasing them, Yeah. So the funnel that I talk about in the free guide that you mentioned is to productize a branding service. So this is several of my clients who are freelancers. They have, anytime you've delivered the same type of offering 5 to 10 times, you kind of can start to look at what are the similarities between all of those client interactions. And, at some points, there's going to be the same kinds of deliverables that are needed. You could start to cost out something at the same, sort of price. And so once you can arrive on a price, you can actually make a sales page. And then that sales page collects the money at the start. Because what a lot of the clients that I've spoken to whinge about is that, they're chasing money at the end. So even if you do get the 50% upfront to trigger the job, you then are chasing money. It's much easier if you have a sales page where it's broken down into 2 payments. They put in their credit card, and then, in 30, 60, 90 days, whenever the project's finished, their credit card is debited again, just like, when you buy any other subscription model. And so the customer is used to that as a process. Our Netflix account just takes money out of our account every month, and we don't need to be chased by Netflix. I want to take the same approach for freelancers, that even if they do break down the payments into payment plans, it can still be automated rather than you sending the final follow-up invoice and then chasing for payment.
And then they don't have to have the money conversation, really, because it's the sales page is doing it for them.
That's right.
A lot of designers hate that money conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the only time, the first time you hear from the client is after the money's been paid and the assets are delivered. So you're not having this sort of back and forth conversations. And obviously, if it's a larger, more customized design service, of course you want those one-on-one conversations where you can, scope out the project. But what I'm talking about is there's always those just basic service deliveries that after a while, a business card and a logo and a whatever, in the end, there's only so many variables, and you can account for those variables in a form. You can have a type form that captures all the details. There can be areas where the clients can write out more information. You can even make a video where you explain your process. If you're having to explain your process to a client more than once, just record it and put it into the sales page, and then let the video explain to the client. And then you can have a bank of frequently asked questions on the sales page so that, when the client says, yeah, but what about, and yeah, but what about, then you have those in the facts. Then you just, funnel them down to basically, are you happy with my process? Are you happy with the timelines? Are you happy with the money? Just like you would in a one-on-one phone conversation with a client, but the sales page does it for you. And then, put in your credit card details, and then that sends an email to the designer to start designing. And the other thing is to think about, so productizing a service for a frazzled freelancer, but also you can then do the sort of customer acquisition and onboarding. For example, there's an Australian designer called Lisa Furs who I use as a case study quite often, and she has lots of content on Pinterest. So the sort of funnel feeder stuff that she puts out on Pinterest is, she's clearly building her authority in the branding space. And so anybody who's sort of looking to do their own kind of branding or looking for branding resources, if they're on Pinterest looking for ideas, she has a bank of blog posts which tell you all about, the strategies behind branding, what should be expected with branding, and all of this stuff's very useful. And then you're invited to download her freebie, which is a sort of a guide to branding. So for the majority of people who visit her website, they're just going to be happy with that free guide. In the free guide checkout process, you're also offered a deeper dive for $7. For some people, that's a no-brainer. It's like, okay, I want to go deeper on this topic. She's clearly established herself as an authority in branding. I want to read this guide, so I'm going to give her the $7. So she would be making passive income from those people buying her expertise packaged into a branding guide. A few days later, you get some emails from her where she follows up and invites you to watch a free masterclass. And so you watch the free masterclass. Whether you paid the $7 or not, doesn't matter. You watch the free masterclass. And in that, she basically unpacks her entire branding process. So the way she deals with strategy, her philosophy around branding, the kinds of clients she works with, how her process unfolds, how long it takes, how much it costs. And so by the end of that, you're just like, well, okay, it costs $3,500. It's going to take 6 weeks. You've got an opening in April. I'm booking in and here's my deposit. She's using it as a passive income thing for just the little $7 purchase, but she's also using it as a way of pre-qualifying and, kind of attracting clients. And she's already established her expertise. She's already given you the sort of testimonials from the clients and shown you all the work. It's a no-brainer for people that if they are in the market to get a full branding package designed, why wouldn't you get her to do it? You know everything about how she's going to do it. There's been no sort of price shopping. There's been no need to play one off against another. There's none of that has gone on. If people have made it through the webinar and they're in the market for a branding package, they're probably going to sign up and give her the money. So, she's used it for customer acquisition. And then once you get in the process of actually being a customer, then there's a series of automated things to collect copy information about the company, fill in a branding strategy kind of worksheet. All of those things is, again, automated and delivers it to her in a prepackaged form. So she makes use of multiple funnels in her business to just, basically book out her calendar with branding packages. So that's the frazzled freelancer. So the undervalued freelancer is another example that I come across because I work in the lettering space. So the hand lettering space is, filled with graphic designers basically who may or may not freelance or may not work for a graphic design company, but they have a desire to kind of step into the role of being somebody who's actually celebrated for their work, because the problem with a lot of graphic design is it's quite anonymous. If you're really creating work where it's your voice and your vision, it can be quite difficult for you to kind of get that attributed to you and your personality and who you are. So this is where Instagram comes in. A lot of people like to publish work on a regular basis and kind of build their profile as an artist. So my second case study is the undervalued freelancer. If you're creating work for clients who only value your time, then it can be very disheartening if you've got a lot of creative skill where you want to kind of be known for that skill. So Ashley is one of my clients who she was working as a designer at a design company, but really the clients were paying for her time rather than her creative kind of skills that she could bring to the table. And so what she wanted to do was, start to be known for a particular style or known for her kind of lettering work that she was doing. And so she actually created a mini course which teaches you how to create letter forms using Procreate on the iPad. So, she was very specific about the skills that she wanted to share with people. And it also meant that she was very specific about the types of people that she wanted to attract onto her mailing list. And so she started to build an Instagram profile where she would show how she would do these sorts of lettering styles. And she began to develop quite a following of people who loved, the end result, the work that she was creating. And so we took her through the process of designing her first mini course. And then she basically had an opt-in funnel. So she made use of the sort of the sleazy sales funnel type of funnel, but the standard one that's out there. But she really gave a lot of value in that she created these Procreate lettering brushes. And so it's actually something that only somebody with an iPad and only somebody with an Apple Pencil and only somebody with the application Procreate would be able to even access, let alone use. So she didn't attract a lot of freebie seekers. She really attracted her specialist niche audience. And so it meant that anybody who got on her mailing list was, already a pre-qualified Procreate user. And so when she created her mini course, she, went gangbusters when she launched it to her email list because, she had absolutely a tribe of raving fans who were ready and waiting to be taught how to do her lettering style. That was the kind of first funnel that she built, and then that was quite successful. So she did another couple of mini courses, and again, teaching people how to use Procreate. Then we started to realize that, $30 mini courses aren't going to make you a millionaire. They're not going to get her that Tesla that she wants. So she's now moving to serve part of her email list in helping them to develop their own digital products. Because she's had success in the digital product space, she's now creating a course called Digital Product Secrets, where she teaches other lettering artists how to create their own digital products. And so obviously that's going to be a higher priced course, like maybe $300 or $400, but she's already kind of built those, built the tribe of raving fans by, selling those sort of smaller mini courses. Her email list is her core customer acquisition, is to actually kind of launch to her email list, as well as building up her Instagram following, which she's been doing for quite a while. So then the third case study is the expert freelancer. And so this is someone who's, got expertise in a particular field. And so, the example here I give is Kelly, and she basically works one-on-one. So she does a lot of brand strategy. She actually calls it kind of brand therapy. She almost has to kind of pull it out of her clients. So it's very kind of one-on-one, hands-on, and it takes quite a while. So, it's almost like a kind of strategy process takes place first. And she has to do that one-on-one. And so she's been doing it in person. So in her local area, she's been, dealing with people who are starting businesses, and she kind of has these strategy sessions with them. And then she gets their kind of ideas solidified, and then she's able to design from there. So she really is a kind of custom high touch package. She's kind of experimenting with the idea of, booking that into a sort of a systemized thing, but it's not the kind of thing where you can just sell it as an automated package. She really does have to have a consultation with people. She's actually turning it into a kind of a streamlined process, but it's still a one-on-one process. And so she's created what we call a consult funnel. And so that's where, again, rather than her ringing around and trying to kind of have conversations about persuading the sales conversation, by the time people get on the phone with her, they're already pre-qualified and they've paid for the consultation session, and she can upsell them onto the full service kind of branding package. The sort of expertise package is kind of similar to the productized service, but it is still very much, they're going to have to interact with you, so they need to actually make a calendar booking and then have a phone call. So she uses a consult funnel. So those first three are all digital. They're designs that can be offered and then sent via email. The fourth case study is the e-commerce freelancer. So again, this came about because of my clients. I thought I was just dealing with people who were digital service deliveries, but then someone showed up who made handbags, and she's like, "Help me!" And I was like, "Okay." So Madison actually has, it's very much about being ecologically friendly. She gets cactus leather, so it's vegan, and then she gets it made into these amazing sort of green backpacks and handbags and little kind of wallets and things. And so for the product-based business, you can use a funnel to, collect customer information and get interested customers, and you can give away vouchers and things for a discount. But the way that she's using funnels is to build a community, because the fact that it's, cactus leather, it's very green and
literally
it's looks green. I mean, they're amazing looking things, but it's a particular type of person is going to buy these things, but they're a raving fan. You can then sell them more products. So once you develop other products, they're going to be buying, it's like if you're an Apple fan, Apple just releases a new thing and everybody goes and buys it because they're in the Apple tribe, right? So she's kind of creating a tribe around her brand and her brand ethos. The example I give her is things like, Harley Davidson fans or Johnny Cupcakes. There's just this cult around the brand. And so she's actually creating, kind of fun challenges and things. And again, using funnels to kind of attract people into those challenges, and then from there, kind of giving them sort of VIP customer rewards and things like that, so that they feel like they're part of her inner circle. And so she uses automated funnels to kind of generate those free challenges. And then the fifth case study is the bored freelancer, and that is somebody who's just done the same thing over and over again. And they're like, if I have to show up and do this thing one more time, I'm going to shoot myself. So I have a couple of those. One lady, she's taught the same illustration course for 13 years to this, to the next group and the next group and the next group of students. It's in a formal college learning session, sort of environment where she's standing in a classroom delivering this stuff face to face with humans in the room with her. She's wanting to take her expertise and package it into an online course. And so the online course we hear about a lot for as being the only kind of thing that a freelancer can do. And that's why I've sort of left it to the last one, because I just wanted to show that there is all these other ways that funnels can be used. You don't have to make an online course, but some people still want to make an online course. And if you've got enough experience and you've delivered it in person enough times, it's absolutely ready to be kind of, turned into an online course which is delivered digitally. She doesn't want to show up and deliver it in a coaching session. She wants it to be a self-study kind of course. So she's building an evergreen course launch funnel, and that's just using an automated webinar. So this is probably the most common one that we think of. People like Amy Porterfield or Marie Forleo, where they have their they'll give you a freebie and then they'll invite you to the webinar, and then at the end of the webinar, whether it's live or pre-recorded, they'll then sell you on their high ticket course. And you do it live enough times that you know what all the objections are going to be, you know what all the questions are going to be, and then you can start to kind of perfect that webinar and make it evergreen. So that's the goal for most course creators, is they want evergreen launches. Somebody like Stu McLaren and Marie Forleo, they do live launches still because they have the energy and the team around them to make it this big, huge event. But for the average solo freelancer, you've got an online course.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, that's right.
Right,
You've got an online course. You
work.
just want it to sell itself, one or two a day. That's enough for most people. So yeah, so that sort of automated evergreen thing where, again, it's all then once it's built, all you've got to be doing is concentrating on filling the funnel. And so that's where the fun part comes in, making the pretty pins for Pinterest, creating content for Instagram, basically giving away free lead magnets, free trainings, free guides so that people get onto your mailing list, and then you can start to sell them onto the products.
So the frazzled freelancer, I think, is who most designers, they're going to identify with. And what you were saying about like that sales page, like I said earlier, a lot of designers aren't confident with selling. They hate the sales conversation, the money conversation. I used to hate that stuff too. Now I don't mind it, but it took a long time to get to that point. So they don't have to haggle over money, like you say, but they don't even have to worry about like, oh, I gotta like be sure that I sound okay, or I'm going to say this or that. Like if they're nervous about that as it is, because I know what that feels like, then they don't have to worry about that either.
Absolutely. And look, getting it out of the way, this is why you've got to think of, you're now a product offering rather than a service offering, and your clients become customers. Your automated subscriptions to your Adobe packages and your Netflix and your house insurance that just automatically comes out of your credit card. You're not on the phone with any of those people haggling about it. You've made your decision to buy Netflix. Netflix haven't had to have a sales conversation with you ever. And then once you're getting the thing provided, you're happy for the money to just come out of your credit card. Now, obviously, $10 to Netflix, $2,000 to a designer, it's an entirely different price point, but the process is still the same. Rather than, invoicing somebody at the end of it and feeling guilty about chasing them or all of that sort of stuff. It's just the sales conversation has been taken off your hands. And the other thing to think about this is from the customer's perspective. They appreciate it because, the scariest thing most clients feel is that they're going into a conversation where they don't understand the process, that this thing does feel like a running taxi meter, and they could be up for more than they bargained for, other than having a discussion about all of their needs first, and then the designer coming back with an estimate or with a quote. That is actually a terrifying process for most clients. Like, that's not a fun process to go through. If they've got your design process all mapped out for them in some kind of framework or some kind of video, then they feel more confident about all of the magical things you're going to do on your computer for them.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one sort of reassurance for the customer, that they don't have to just trust that you're going to do the right thing in the right time frame. if they know beforehand what's expected of them in this partnership, because they just want to show up, give you a brief, and then it's all up to you. And it's like a lot of clients don't realize that they have to, kind of fill in a lot of blanks so that you can generate copy, and they're going to have to provide a lot of images so that you can build a website, or they're going to have to make decisions about their personality and their kind of brand vision so that you can design a logo. So again, all of those things, when they get into the kind of designing process, it's unknown territory for them. They're kind of not confident about it, and this is why a lot of clients kind of panic or bail on the process, or whatever it is. So if all of that is laid out before anybody talks to anybody, then that's just reassuring for the client. Not to mention the fact that they know right away how much it's going to cost them, because they're about to hand over their credit card and pay that money now, and then they're done. It's like one and done. There's not going to be any hidden surprise fees, and it's not just like having a running taxi meter where it just the project blows out because they underestimated what was involved. So I think the thing for a freelancer to do is to actually put themselves in the shoes of the client and just think how unnerving this process is. Because for the freelancer, you've done 20 websites. So for you, this is 20 times that you've done this. But for your client, this is maybe the first time they've ever gone through a process. They might never have commissioned a designer, and they want to just be reassured and educated as to all of the steps that are going to happen to them in the next 2 to 3 months or whatever. So, rather than thinking of it as a sales page where it's somehow sleazy and manipulative and going to pressure them into buying something, think of it as an education process where, instead of them bumping into all of these brick walls as we go through the design process, you lay your process out on the table, transparent, clear, upfront. This is what I'm going to do. This is how much it's going to cost. This is what you're going to get as a result. Here's where you put your credit card.
Right. Well, I imagine too, this also would allay their fear of like, oh, I don't want to give you a budget or tell you an expectation of cost, because if I do, then you're gonna maybe charge me more than you would have if I didn't give you that number. Because a lot of clients don't want to share numbers for that reason. They're afraid the designer's going to jack up the fee. Traditionally, I think designers are usually undercharging, but I think a lot of clients think they're going to be overcharged if they give out that number. But do you feel like, I mean, obviously some clients I think are going to say, well, I would rather have more input from a person through a process like this. I mean, I have a short process just to get on the phone with me, and I've had only like 2 people ever balk about it. But they're not a right fit, right? Because that's my process and they need to respect the process, and that's how I work, right? But I imagine there's going to be like some people that, like you said, that appreciate this, but there might be some that are like, well, I need more hand holding, so it's not going to be for them, but it's going to attract the right type of client that you want to work with.
Yeah, I mean, to me, hand-holding means more money. So, I mean, you can build that into the package, that this is the basic package. And if you want more custom stuff, if you want, I mean, again, this is where you, as a creative freelancer, you've got to look at your process. This isn't going to work if you're a bespoke designer who's doing a poster for somebody 1 minute and then, an entire annual report the next minute, and then your next job is this. It's not going to work because you can't productize your service. What this process works best for is the person who has done their 17th 5-page website. It's going to work for someone who's done 23 logo and business card packages. Like, it's when you do the same type of thing over and over again.
Right.
That absolutely can be packaged into a productized service. You already know all of the frequently asked questions. You know all of the questions your real clients are going to ask you. Put them into a document and answer them. You already know what your process is. Put that into a framework, or, a visual framework, or a video where you talk through it. Some people like to show, not tell. Some people love to talk. There's lots of different ways you can communicate your process. And
personality.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. If you have a personality and you love talking to clients, and it's all about that kind of energy that you bring to the exchange, then absolutely make a video and make it clear that, you're not just going to hand them over to the computer and make it all automated. Of course, there might be moments throughout the process where you get on a Zoom call and you do the presentation and you talk through all the stuff. Absolutely. It's just more that, if you're going to get a bunch of people ringing you up and asking the same questions about, how much is this going to cost me? And how many options do I get? And when will it be delivered? And how many business cards will be printed? And who does the hosting? And, those questions
Right.
over and over and over again. If you've been a freelancer for a while, you know what I'm talking about. Like, those conversations. And so it's I've talked to a couple of designers, and they admit that they're control freaks, and they admit that it scares them to sort of hand this thing over. But it's laziness that's turning into more work for you later down the track. You're wanting to control the process to the point where you're always the person there talking about it. That's why you're poor and tired.
Yeah. Because like training people in your process and having them work for you, like that's changed so much for me going from
Yeah.
a solo designer to having a team. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the same thing. It's just thinking of some of these processes as being part of your team, because some human having to send an email saying, thank you for being our customer or our client. Now what we need from you is your business name and your address and all of these details so that we can now make your business card accurate. Why does a human have to do that every time in an email? It's a waste of everybody's time, whether it's you or a team member. There's some parts of the process that can be automated, especially that content gathering stuff. So there's a great website called Content Snare. And what that does is it's kind of like, when you're uploading stuff to a Teams, like a Typeform or something, it lays out the steps of all the things that you need to deliver. And this is, there's templates that they have. And so creating a brief, you ask all the same questions, and then you prepare a brief, and then you send it to the client and say, are we in agreement that this is what you're going to do? The brief writing process can be automated. The content collection process can be automated. But what Content Snare does is it gives them like an account where they can sign in and log back in, because obviously they might have profile photos, but they might not have photos of the building or the vehicles yet. So they can upload their profile photos, and then they know that they've got a deadline, to deliver the additional photos that they're going to need for the website. This is a sort of a portal where the client can log in and upload new stuff as they have it, and the designer can log in and download the stuff as they need it. And you can set in automatic triggers for deadlines. It's like, we need the copy by March the 3rd. We need the photos by April the 4th. We need the domain name by, so you can set in all these kind of triggers. And then if the client hasn't uploaded the information, the software sends them the reminder. You don't have to be chasing them for the photo assets and then the copy. Anybody who's nervous about, productizing an entire kind of part of their business and automating the whole thing, obviously take baby steps and just look at a process within your daily life where it's like, oh, I'm sending this again. Oh, I'm doing an estimate again. Oh, I'm doing an invoice again. How can that be automated? And so, can I maybe do the Content Snare process rather than emailing my client to gather all the assets? Just start chunking bits off. And the beauty of a funnel is that it's usually lots of discrete bits that are then joined together. So once you automate one part of the business, you can then automate a different step and a different step, and then you can join those things together, and then that becomes your sort of your finished funnel. And in the end, a funnel's never finished. You're always optimizing it. You're always saying, well, that process could be improved. That could be, this is why it's great that you're kind of moving people through different bits of software, is you can swap out bits of those software if they're not working for you. You can add in extra steps. You can bring in parts of your team and get them to, kind of administer different steps. So you don't need to build the thing and have it, finished. You can actually kind of just iterate on this process endlessly, really.
And then people that aren't as techy, they can start with like some lower tech options, obviously, than some higher ones.
In the end, I don't think it's the tech that's the problem. I think it's the resistance to stop being in the machine and actually step out of the machine and go, okay, let's examine why I'm doing this thing this way. That takes some energy, and it takes a different mindset. So, it's that idea of working on your business, not in your business. We're often so busy running on the hamster wheel to deliver things to a client that it's very hard to just go, stop doing this thing and let's step outside and say, why am I doing this thing? Could I do this thing any differently? Is there a way to improve this process? How can I maybe, systemize or automate that process? That does take a definite kind of mindset shift for a creative person in particular, to stop doing the thing and start questioning the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what's funny is that I initially reached out to you to talk about lettering. And then I found out you had this other business and this course. And when you told me about it, I thought, well, that's an even better idea to topic for the podcast. So do you want to talk a little bit about what that's called and why you created it?
Yes, so the Creative Funnel Formula is a course that I created to help creative freelancers to build their first funnel. And for most people, no matter what industry you're in or no matter what products you're going to be selling, for most people, it really should be some kind of opt-in funnel. So just getting people that are interested in what you have to offer onto an email list so that you can communicate with them on a regular basis. And so just building that opt-in funnel is a really good sort of practice at getting familiar with all the technology. And I often say to people that if you can get 100 people on an email list, the steps that you've had to go through to get that milestone to happen, you can do anything. All of the steps and processes involved in any of the funnels that I've talked about today, if you can build an opt-in funnel, you can then build all of those other funnels. So it just kind of, clears a lot of those sort of mindset blocks, and it clears a lot of the technology blocks. And these days, there's so many pieces of technology that you can, use to build a funnel. And I talk about those in the course, but the one that I recommend is Kajabi because it's an all-in-one kind of solution. And I've been so hamstrung by trying to cobble together bits and pieces of other technologies and get them to work together. And then, moving to Kajabi has literally just changed my life and changed my business because I'm able to just come up with an idea and then make it happen in 20 minutes as opposed to just being, blocked by the technology. So I talk about all of that in the course, but the course literally just is a self-study course, and it takes you through step by step, how to build a landing page, how to design your first lead magnet, how to get the kind of content strategy around filling the funnel and how to launch it, how to build it and how to launch it. And then, your first milestone that you're aiming for is, just get 100 people on your list and you've achieved a huge kind of milestone, and then you're able to kind of pivot your business and start to experiment with all the other stuff.
Well, this has been really interesting to talk about all this because now I have ideas myself for for my business. But I think this also gives designers so many different options that it doesn't have to be just about client work either. It could also be like some other kind of additional income options that they could have on the side as well to supplement that. So I think it's been really interesting to talk about this, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. It was terrific to have the chance to unpack the whole idea and really talk in depth about it. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Thanks. If this content was helpful, you can support the podcast by buying me a coffee. It might actually end up being a glass of wine or some tea, but you could go to buymeacoffee.com/creativeboost.